Hey there, coin enthusiasts! Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're diving into a classic American coin, the 1969 Roosevelt dime. This little silver beauty has a lot of history packed into it, and we'll be exploring everything from its unique features to its current circulated value. So if you're a collector, or if you just happen to have one of these in your coin jar, stick around as we break it all down for you. First off, let's take a closer look at this dime. The 1969 Roosevelt dime is part of a long series of coins minted to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt, who served as the 32nd President of the United States. The design of this coin was created by renowned artist John R. Sinek, and it features a portrait of Roosevelt on the obverse, or the front, and the famous torch, olive branch, and oak branch on the reverse, symbolizing peace, strength, and unity. But what makes the 1969 Roosevelt dime stand out? Well, let's talk about its composition. This coin was minted with a 90% silver content until 1964, and after that, it became a copper-nickel-clad coin. So, if you're holding a 1969 Roosevelt dime, it's actually composed of 91.67% copper and 8.33% nickel. No more silver, but it still carries that iconic design. Now, on to the big question. What's the circulated value of a 1969 Roosevelt dime? The short answer is, it's not worth much above face value for most circulated coins. Whether it's in great condition or has been through a lot of wear and tear, this coin typically circulates around the standard 10 cents. But if you're lucky, and the coin is in excellent condition, it might be worth a little more. So, if you're looking to determine the value of your 1969 Roosevelt dime, the condition is key. If your coin is well worn, you're most likely looking at a value close to 10 cents. But, if your coin is in uncirculated condition, the value could rise a little bit, and we're talking about somewhere around 25 to 50 cents, depending on the quality. To give you a better understanding of what I mean, let's break it down by coin grades. In the world of coin collecting, grading is everything. If your 1969 Roosevelt dime is in good condition, meaning it has noticeable wear but still shows all of the important features, its value might still hover around face value or slightly above. If it's in fine condition, where the details are more visible, but there's still wear on the coin, it could be worth up to 25 to 50 cents. And if your 1969 Roosevelt dime is in a mint, or proof condition, meaning it was never circulated and is essentially as good as the day it was struck, then we're talking about a value higher than the 25 to 50 cents range. In that case, the coin could fetch a couple of dollars, maybe even up to $5 or more if it's in near-perfect condition. But remember, the 1969 Roosevelt dime was minted in large quantities. Over 1.5 billion dimes were produced in that year, so it's not a rare coin by any stretch of the imagination. The rarity of a coin, along with its condition, plays a big role in determining its value. Now, you might be wondering, what's the best way to preserve these dimes? Well, keeping your coins in good condition can really help you maximize their value. Storing them in protective holders, away from the elements, and handling them carefully with gloves can keep that shine intact, especially if you happen to come across one that's uncirculated. Here's an easy way to keep your coins safe. Investing in a coin album or protective sleeves is a great move. That way, you can protect the condition of the coin, which is key when you're looking to increase its value. So, in summary, while the 1969 Roosevelt dime is not going to make you a millionaire, it still holds historical value as part of the long-running series that began in 1946. And for those of you who are collectors, it's a great coin to add to your collection. Whether you're just holding on to it for nostalgia or trying to complete your set, this dime remains a significant piece of American coinage. 1997 ***. We're going to explore its history, how much it's worth today, and why it might be more valuable than you think, even in circulated condition. So grab your coins, get comfy, and let's dive into this. Here's what we're talking about today, the 1997 Roosevelt dime. You might have one of these in your change right now, and if you do, you're probably wondering, what's it worth? How much is it worth in circulated condition? Let's get into the details. First, let's talk a bit about the history of this coin. The Roosevelt dime was introduced in 1946, just after the death of President Franklin D. Roosevelt, who had served as the 32nd President of the United States. The dime was designed by the famed artist John R. Sinek, and it has remained unchanged for decades. Now, the 1997 Roosevelt dime, like all dimes, is made of a copper-nickel composition. The coin weighs just 2.27 grams and has a diameter of 17.91 millimeters. You'll notice the obverse features the portrait of President Roosevelt, and on the reverse, we have the torch, olive branch, and oak branch symbolizing liberty, peace, and strength. Simple, yet meaningful. Now, let's talk about the value of the 1997 Roosevelt dime in circulated condition. As you might know, the value of a coin depends on a variety of factors, including its metal content, rarity, and demand from collectors. In the case of the 1997 Roosevelt dime, the value is fairly stable. As of now, the 1997 Roosevelt dime is worth its face value of 10 cents in circulated condition. That's because this coin was minted in large quantities. Over 1.3 billion of these dimes were produced that year, making it relatively common. Now, if you're holding a 1997 dime and it's showing some wear and tear, don't expect it to fetch more than its face value unless it's in exceptional condition. Coins in circulated condition typically have scratches, dings, and some discoloration, so they aren't considered rare by collectors. But wait. Just because the 1997 dime is common doesn't mean all dimes are worth only 10 cents. There are certain things that can increase the value of a dime like this. For example, if you happen to have a 1997 Roosevelt dime that is in uncirculated condition, meaning it's never been in circulation and shows no signs of wear, that's a different story. Coins in uncirculated condition are more valuable, and you might see them sell for a little bit above face value, perhaps $1 or so, depending on the market. Also, graded coins can fetch higher prices. If your 1997 Roosevelt dime has been professionally graded by organizations like PCGS or NGC and it's graded MS 65 or higher, then it might have a higher value, possibly around $3 to $5. Coins that receive higher grades like MS 67 could be worth even more. Another thing to consider is that error coins can be much more valuable. Although there aren't any major errors on the 1997 Roosevelt dime that have been widely recognized, minor flaws like double dies or striking errors do happen. If you find a 1997 Roosevelt dime with any unusual or unique characteristics, like a mistruck image or off-center minting, it could make it a rare find worth checking with a coin expert. In terms of the market today, the 1997 Roosevelt dime remains a coin that's not necessarily sought after by serious collectors, unless it has that special something, like a perfect grade or an error. But for the average collector or investor, these dimes aren't seen as a high-value item. They do, however, represent an important part of American coinage history and still serve their purpose as a reliable form of currency. So, if you're wondering how to tell if your 1997 dime has more value than just 10 cents, the key is to look at the condition. If it's well worn, chances are it won't be worth much more than face value. But if it's uncirculated, check for scratches, dings, or any imperfections that might lower its grade. A well-preserved coin, especially one with a high grade, could be worth a little more to collectors. Use tools like a magnifying glass or a jeweler's loupe to check for details. Examine the coin's surface carefully for any anomalies or signs of wear. This could help you determine if you have a coin that stands out from the crowd. Wrap it up. The 1997 Roosevelt dime is still primarily worth its face value of 10 cents in circulated condition, given its high mintage. However, if you have one in perfect, uncirculated condition or with a rare error, it could be worth more to the right collector. Keep an eye out for those rare gems, and always remember, condition and rarity are key when it comes to coin collecting. Before 1946, the dime was represented by the Mercury dime, which had been in circulation since 1916. However, after President Franklin D. Roosevelt passed away in April 1945, there was a strong public desire to honor his legacy. Roosevelt had been the longest-serving president in American history and was greatly admired for his leadership during the Great Depression and World War II. Roosevelt was also a champion of social welfare programs like Social Security, which remains a key part of his legacy. In 1946, the U.S. Mint held a design competition to find a suitable image for the new dime, one that would memorialize President Roosevelt. The winning design was created by John R. Sinek, the chief engraver of the U.S. Mint at the time. The design features a portrait of Roosevelt on the obverse, with the word Liberty above his head, and the date and the motto In God We Trust to his left and right, respectively. On the reverse side, Sinek depicted a symbolic design featuring a torch, an olive branch, and an oak branch, representing liberty, peace, and strength. This design was meant to capture Roosevelt's contributions to these ideals during his presidency. The Roosevelt dime was chosen as the coin to honor Roosevelt because of his association with the March of Dimes, a charity campaign launched in 1938 to fight polio. Roosevelt himself had struggled with polio throughout his life, and the March of Dimes played a critical role in funding research for a vaccine. By placing Roosevelt's portrait on the dime, the U.S. Mint effectively commemorated his legacy in both a personal and symbolic way, while continuing his connection to the fight against polio. The 1997 Roosevelt dime was part of a long line of dimes minted since its introduction in 1946. By the time 1997 rolled around, the coin had been in regular circulation for over 50 years, and the design had remained largely unchanged. In 1997, the U.S. Mint produced over 1.3 billion Roosevelt dimes, which were distributed in circulation across the United States. While the coin's basic design stayed the same, the U.S. Mint continued to produce dimes with different mint marks to represent different mints: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The 1997 dimes are also part of the clad coinage series, meaning they are composed of a copper-nickel alloy rather than a silver composition, which had been used before 1965. This was part of a broader transition in U.S. coinage in the 1960s, when rising silver prices led to a change in the metals used for everyday coins. Since its introduction, the Roosevelt dime has been a staple of American coinage. Over the decades, the coin has remained relatively unchanged, maintaining its place in U.S. currency alongside other coins like the penny, nickel, and quarter. The 1997 Roosevelt dime is often seen as part of the modern issues of this coin, marking the end of the 20th century. The 2016 Roosevelt dime. We're going to take a closer look at its circulated value, its history, and even some tips on how to spot any rarities that might be hiding in your change jar. Let's get started. First, let's start with a quick overview of the 2016 Roosevelt dime. As many of you know, the Roosevelt dime has been a staple of American currency since 1946, and it's one of the most commonly found coins in circulation today. The coin was designed by the famous artist John R. Sinnock, and it honors Franklin D. Roosevelt, the 32nd President of the United States. Roosevelt was the president who helped guide the U.S. through the Great Depression and World War II. The dime was introduced shortly after his passing in 1945, and it remains one of the most iconic pieces of U.S. currency. Now, let's take a closer look at the design specifics of the 2016 Roosevelt dime. On the front, OUVE got the classic portrait of President Roosevelt, with his profile facing left. The design is simple but striking, with the words "Liberty" at the top, "In God We Trust" to the left, and the year of minting, in this case, 2016, to the right. In the reverse, you'll find the traditional design of a torch, olive branch, and oak branch. This design symbolizes freedom, peace, and strength. Around the design, you'll see the words United States of America and E Pluribus Unum, which means out of many one. Okay, so let's get to the heart of the matter. What's the circulated value of the 2016 Roosevelt dime? Well, in terms of its face value, the 2016 dime is worth just 10 cents, or 1/10 of a dollar. But if you're a collector, this coin's value can vary depending on its condition and any potential rarities. Because the 2016 Roosevelt dime was produced in large quantities and widely circulated, you'll typically find them in average condition, which means they'll be worth just 10 cents. These coins are abundant, and in general, they don't command a premium in everyday circulation. Now, let's talk about what factors could impact the value of your 2016 dime. The main thing to keep in mind is the coin's condition. A dime that's been through a lot of circulation will show wear, like scratches, discoloration, or fading, which reduces its value. However, if you happen to come across a 2016 dime in excellent condition, like one with sharp details and no signs of wear, you could see it sell for a little more than face value. Coins that are graded as uncirculated, or MS, mint state, by reputable coin grading services like PCGS or NGC may fetch a premium, even though the 2016 dime isn't considered particularly rare. But if you have one in great shape, it might be worth around 50 cents or a dollar. Maybe even a little more if you're selling to a collector. Next, let's talk about the potential for rarities. The 2016 Roosevelt dime didn't have any major errors or special editions like some other coins, but that doesn't mean there aren't some interesting varieties to look for. For example, some 2016 dimes were minted with different mint marks depending on where they were produced. Coins from the Philadelphia Mint don't have a mint mark, while dimes from the Denver Mint will have a D, and dimes from the San Francisco Mint will have an S. In terms of rarity, these dimes are pretty common. However, some collectors might focus on certain mint marks based on their personal preferences or collection themes. If you're looking to find the true value of your 2016 Roosevelt dimes, there are a few tips that can help. First, you'll want to check the coin for any signs of wear. Coins that are heavily circulated, like the ones you'll typically find in your pocket change, won't have much value beyond face value. But if you've got a dime that's still looking fresh, it could be worth holding on to. Next, Make sure to check the edge for any strange markings or cuts. Sometimes, minting errors can make a coin more valuable. Finally, it's a good idea to store your coins properly to avoid further damage. A simple coin album can help protect your collection and keep it in top shape. Oh, to sum it all up, the 2016 Roosevelt dime, in terms of its circulated value, is still just worth 10 cents. But if you're lucky enough to find one in excellent condition or with a rare mint mark, you could see it fetch a little more than that. Keep an eye out for those dimes in pristine shape, and remember to take good care of your coins if you're thinking of selling or collecting them. Thanks for tuning in to this deep dive into the 2016 Roosevelt dime. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more awesome coin content. Drop any questions or thoughts you have about the 2016 dime in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, happy collecting!